This is Jacob Ovadia, and we'll be studying Hilkhot Talmud Torah, Perek Vav, Chapter 6. Halacha Aleph. In this chapter talks about the respect that an individual is obligated to have for any sage in Israel. As the last chapter, we talked about the respect an individual has to have towards his own personal teacher. And one of the mitzvot min Torah, one of the mitzvot from the Torah that we spoke about at the beginning of the Torah was that an individual has to respect those who know Torah. It says the two mitzvot are to teach Torah, or to study Torah rather, and the second is to respect and honor those who teach Torah and know Torah. And this chapter is going to talk about those who know Torah and who teach Torah. Kol Talmid Chachamim mitzvah lehadero. All of the students of the sages, it is a mitzvah, positive instruction, a commandment, to praise and exalt them. Even though it's not his own personal teacher. Shene'emar, as the pasuk states, from before an elderly you shall stand up, and you shall honor the face of an old individual. This pasuk is in regards to, refers to an individual who acquired knowledge. And from when is an individual obligated to stand before a sage? From when he enters 4 ammot, or about 4 yards of his space, until he passes before him. Individuals should not stand before them in the shower house or in the bathroom. Takum v'hadarta kima sheyesh bah hidur. As the pasuk states, you shall stand up and honor them. And a person should only stand up in a place that there is honor, praise. In the bathroom or in a bathhouse, honor is not present there. ואין בעלי אומנויות חייבים לעמוד מפני תלמידי חכמים בשעה שעוסקים במלאכתן. And employees are not obligated to stand before the student of the sages during the time that they are busy working. Shinne'emar takum behadarta. As the pasuk states, you should get up in honor. Ma hidur she'en bo hisron kis, afkima she'en bah hisron kis. Honor should be without monetary loss. So whenever you get up to honor someone, it shouldn't have a monetary loss for you. And from where do we know that an individual shouldn't shut his eyes before a sage to stand up for him? This is the continuation of the pasuk mentioned above. The pasuk goes, so because as the result of the pasuk saying, and you shall revere God, anything that belongs to an individual's heart, it says about it, and you shall revere God. Therefore, an individual should not shut his eyes, because it's something that is personal with the individual, and he has the ability to choose. and it belongs to his own heart, so to speak. Because the pasuk says you shall revere God in regards to standing up for a sage, so an individual is prohibited from closing his eyes when he sees a sage in order not to stand up. אין ראוי לחכם שיטריח על העם, יכוון עצמו להן כדי שיעמדו מפניו. A sage should not be a bother to the people, or be troublesome, or a burden on the people, and focus and make sure that when he enters, should stand up for him. Rather, he should go through a short way in order for him to take a seat so the people don't have to stand. And he should try very hard not to even make one person see him, so that he won't be a bother for him to stand up. And the sages would go and take a roundabout path, and they would go from an outside entrance, or from an outside path, so that the people that would know, so that there wouldn't be anyone that would know them there, in order for them not to be a bother on the people. Just to point out, look at the great lengths that the Chachamim would go, the early sages would go to avoid bothering the people, even though it would be for their own respect and honor. An individual that's riding on an animal, it's as if he's walking. And just as an individual should stand when a sage is walking, so too he should stand when a sage passes him and he's riding on his animal. This is the protocol for anyone who is walking with a sage. That there were three individuals walking. The master, the sage, would be in the middle. The greatest student, or the greater of the two, on his right, and the less great in category on the left. And this halakha addresses the protocol for the different sages and the different levels and categories of sages in the Jewish society, when an individual has to stand up and when he can sit down. And again, this whole standing up has to do with respect, and it's something that should still be practiced. Someone who sees a sage should not stand before him until he reaches within 4 amot of him. And after he passes, he should sit. However, the rules are different for those distinguished individuals in the Jewish society, particularly the president and vice president of the Supreme Court. And we're going to see how that plays out. Ra'ah Beddin, if an individual saw the vice president of the Supreme Court of the Jewish people, an individual should stand from before him once he enters his line of sight. And he should not sit until he passes 4 amot after him. If he saw the president of the Supreme Court, similarly, he should also stand before him once he enters his line of sight. And he should not sit until the president sits down in his spot, or until he leaves his line of sight. And a president who decided to forego all of this honor, he has the ability to do so. Zayin, כשהנשיא נכנס Kol ha'am omedin. When the president of the Supreme Court walks in, the entire nation or congregation should stand. Again, this is similar to the American judicial system. When a judge enters the room, everyone stands up typically. And they should not sit until he says sit, give them permission to sit. When the vice president enters, עומדים מכאן ומכאן, עד שייכנס, עד שנכנס ויושב במקומו, ושאר העם יושבים במקומן. When the vice president enters, the people make two rows, standing up from both sides, left and right of the president, until he enters and sits in his place, and then the rest of the nation is allowed to sit. They don't need to wait for the vice president's permission, in contrast to the president. חכם שנכנס, כל שיגיע לו בארבע אמות עומד לפניו. אחד עומד ואחד יושב, עד שנכנס וישב במקומו. If a sage enters a room, anyone four amot ahead of him should stand from before him, and everyone stands up as he progressively passes them. So once he enters four amot of the individual, they should stand and then sit down after he passes. Hilkhot. Bnei chachamim v'talmidei chachamim, that the sons of the sages and the students of the sages, bizman sheharabim tzarichin lahen, mekapetzin al rashei ha'am v'nichnasin limkoman. When the masses need them, or it seems that this halakha is referring to when one of their teachers is giving a class or speaking. It's as if they would jump on the heads of the people and sit in their place. Obviously, not jump up on the heads of the people. Rather, they would run towards the front, and it's as if they would be stepping on the heads of the people to make their way to the front, because they would go quickly. It is not praiseworthy of a student of the sages to come in last. This is obvious. Someone who's a student of his teacher or his sage should be the first person in the class, the first person to be there to serve his master. However, if he left for a reason, then he goes back and returns to his seat. בני חכמים, בזמן שיש בהם דעת לשמוע, הופכים פניהן כלפי אביהן. אין בהן דעת לשמוע, הופכים פניהן כלפי העם. The sons and students of the sages, at a time that they have the mindset to listen and focus on what their master is saying, when they address people, they should turn their face towards their father or their teacher. אין בהן דעת לשמוע, הופכים פניהן כלפי העם. If they don't have the mindset or concentration to focus, they should turn and face. People will know that they're sitting there out of respect to their father or teacher. Talmid shehu yoshev difnei rabbo, tamid. If there's a student who sits in the presence of always sits in the presence of his teacher, eno rasha la'amod min lefanav, ela shacharit ve'arvit bilvad. He is not allowed to rise before him and to get up and leave, only during shaharit and arvit, in the prayers, the morning prayer and the evening prayer. Because if he leaves before, it's as if his master is more than the honor of heaven. Because during the prayers of Shema and Arvit, we say Kiryat Shema, and when we say Kiryat Shema, it's an individual's accepting of Malchut Shamayim. So if he leaves at a time that is not the morning or evening prayer, it's as if his master's honor is more than the honor and fear he has for heaven. Halakha Yod. Mishehu zaken muflag bezikna. Anyone who is very old and has a distinguished age. This is referring to someone around the age of 85 or 90. Again, Rambam here doesn't give an age. It's up to the individual's own judgment to make the call, so to speak. But it's an individual who's very old and distinguished in his age. Even though he may not be a sage, an individual should stand before them. Even a young scholar stands before someone who is distinguished in age. And this is something very telling. In the Jewish mind, in the Jewish mindset, age is something we respect both as individuals and both as a society, because it shows an individual has some type of life or worldly knowledge as a result of his years of experience of different things. And that's why a young scholar even must stand before an individual who's especially old. However, the sage is not obligated to stand up all the way. He should stand however much it would be to honor him. So to get up a little bit, again, Rambam doesn't give an exact measure. It's up to the person's own judgment on how to behave. Whatever would be honorable for the individual. This is something revolutionary. And even a distinguished person who is not a Jew, an elderly, distinguishedly elderly, even an old non-Jew, an individual has the obligation to honor him and to speak to him in terms of praise and honor. And we give him a leaning hand to help him get up if he's sitting. As the pasuk states, you shall rise before an elderly person. Kol seva b'mashma. And this pasuk included all old age. Again, the other side of this obligation is in order for an individual to acquire the character trait of anava, of humbleness, and he realizes how little he's experienced in his short life in comparison to someone that's old, and that's why it applies to a goy, a non-Jew as well. Halakha Yod Aleph. תלמידי חכמים אינן יוצאים לעשות בעצמן עם כל הקהל בבניין בחפירה של המדינה וכיוצא בהם, כדי שלא יתבזו בפני עם הארץ. The student of the sages should not go out personally with the rest of the congregation to dig and to build for the city, so that they won't be disgraced in the eyes of the uneducated individuals. ואין קובעים מהן לבניין החומות ותיקון השערים ושכר השומרים וכיוצא בהם. And we don't go and ask for them to pay for walls of the city or the gates of the city, or for the payment or salary of the guards that protect the city. And anything else in regards to that. And not for the gift fund of the king. And just something else to point out, that it seems just from this this sentence that there would be some type of fund that the Jewish communities would send to the king. It seems that it's referring to a non-Jewish king that was in charge of and ruling over that land, and it just Rambam is hinting to a tactic that the Jewish communities would use, that they would send a gift to the king every year or so, in order for the king to protect the Jewish people. Something that we don't realize enough, pay attention to, is how politically shrewd and intelligent our communities were. We also don't obligate Talmidei Chachamim to give, to pay tax. Ben mas shu katzuv al bnei ha'ir, ben mas shu katzuv al kol ish va'ish. Not the tax that is incumbent on the entire city collectively, and not a tax that is incumbent on every individual. Shne'emar, gam ki yitnu v'goyim ata kabetzin, v'yahelu me'at mimmasa melech v'sarim. Even though they shall spend gifts among the nation, now I'll gather them, and they'll be humbled through the burden of the princes and kings, meaning that they will not pay the burden of the kings and princes. וכן אם הייתה סחורה לתלמיד חכמים, מניחין אותו למכור תחילה. If there was merchandise, the merchandise of a sage at the marketplace, we let him sell first. And we don't go and allow someone else from the marketplace to sell until the sage sells his merchandise first. And again, something else to point out: the shuk, as we mentioned before, a talmid chacham should not go out to the shuk mevusam, smelling good. The shuk was not the nice marketplace that we think of today. Rather, it was not the best of places. And there are certain laws that apply only to the shuk. And an individual is allowed and not allowed to do certain things in the shuk. For example, a woman should not go with her head uncovered to the shuk. And we'll get to that, Be'ezrat Hashem, in Hilkhot, Isurebi'ah, or Ishut. Isurebi'ah. Ishut, Mehila. וכן, אם היה לו דין והיה עומד בכלל בעלי דינין הרבה, מקדמין אותו ומושיבין אותו. Similarly, if he had a judgment, he had to go to court, and he was with the other individuals that also had to go to court, he goes first, and we return him first. But there's an exception to this in Hilkhot Sanhedrin, Perek Aleph, and in a widow and a woman actually takes precedent over a sage, because we want to save from embarrassment from a woman from having to wait. Halacha Yod Gimel. Avon gadol hu levazot et hachachamim o lisnotan. It is a large transgression, or a great transgression, to disgrace or hate the chachamim, the sages. Lo hareva Yerushalayim ad shebizu bah talmidei chachamim. And Jerusalem was not destroyed until the sages were disgraced by the people. Shne'emar, v'yihiyu mal'ivim b'mal'achei ha'elohim, v'ozim devarav u'mita'ateim b'nvi'av. The people would make fun and insult the angels, messengers of God, referring to the Chachamim, as we mentioned before. V'ozim devarav u'mita'ateim b'nvi'av. And they would disgrace and shame what they say, and they would take his Nevi'im lightly. Kelomar, as if to say, they would disgrace those who teach God's word. And this is similar to what the Torah said. Before all of the tragedies that the Torah describes will eventually fall on Israel if they don't keep the laws, it specifically says, if you have discussed in my laws, those who teach my laws will you have discussed, and only then will the tragedies befall you. Anyone who disgraces the sages, does not have a place in the world to come. And he's included in those about which the pasuk says, as he disgraced the word of God. Even though an individual who disgraced the sages doesn't have a place in the world to come, if there are witnesses that came and testified that that an individual disgraced another chacham, afilu bidvarim, even just by speech, hayav nidui, he is liable for nidui. And in the next chapter, we'll discuss exactly what nidui is. Basically, nidui is a temporary status imposed by Beddin of three individuals, and it's a type of societal distancing, and it's an exclusion, as we'll see, of most communities' most communal affairs, as we'll see in the next chapter. For example, it's prohibited to do a business or to sit within 4 amot of an individual that's hayav nidui. But from now, we'll stick with societal distancing or nidui for now. And he is publicly distanced. He's put in nidui publicly. And he is fined a litra of gold in every place. This is 35 dinar, and it's about 145 grams of gold. And it's given to the sage. And anyone who disgraces the sage with words, even after his death, he is put in nidui by the court. And he is released from the status when he does teshuvah, returns to do teshuvah. However, if the sage was alive, but if the sage was alive, he isn't only released until he is only released on the condition that he goes and asks for apologies from the sage, and asks him and apologizes and gets on good terms with the sage. Similarly, a sage has the ability to put someone else in nidui for his honor, to an uneducated individual that disrespected him and took him lightly. He does not need to give a warning, and he does not need witnesses to testify. And he is only released from nidui until he again goes and apologizes to the sage. If the sage passes away, he is released if 3 other people come and they release him from it. But if the sage wanted to forgo this disrespect, and he did not put him in nidui, he has the ability to do so. Again, all of this is in order to keep the proper respect for those who teach Torah and for those who represent the Torah. So if an individual is taking lightly someone that teaches Torah and has acquired knowledge of the Torah, that is unacceptable for us as a society, and we put this person and we distance him and we put him away temporarily from our society in certain ways, and we're going to see that in the next chapter. Halakha Tetzayin. Harav shenida lichvodo, a sage, a master that put someone in nidui for his honor. Hayavim kol talmidav linhog nidui b'menudeh. All of his students are obligated to treat this person as if he's in nidui as well. אבל תלמיד שנידע לכבוד עצמו, אין הרב חייב לנהוג בו נידוי. However, if a student puts someone else in nidui for his own honor, the teacher is not obligated to treat this person as if he's in nidui. אבל כל העם חייבים לנהוג b'o nidui. The rest of the people and the rest of the nation are obligated to treat him as if he's in nidui. וכן, מנודד לנשיא, מנודד לכל ישראל, the individual that the president of the Supreme Court put in nidui, all of Israel must treat this person with nidui. מנודד לכל ישראל, אינו מנודד לנשיא. If anyone except the president put someone in nidui, the president of the Sanhedrin does not have to treat this person with nidui.
Jacob, sorry to interrupt. I think that one way to translate nidui would be for someone to be in contempt of court. That's the equivalent that we have in today's society. Back then, to be in contempt of a Talmid Chachamim, being in nidui had certain other consequences, social consequences. In the United States, if you're in contempt of court, there are several sentencing guidelines, and you could get several kinds of consequences. Back then, nidui had certain consequences, which we will treat in next chapter.
Definitely. Thank you for the clarification, Chacham. Someone who is in contempt of court for all of Israel is not have to be treated by the president of the Supreme Court. An individual that is in contempt of court for his city, the city that he comes from, he is also held in contempt for another city. But if he was put in contempt of court by another city, he is not held in contempt by his own city. When is this applied? This is only in regards to an individual that was put in contempt because he disgraced the student of the sages. However, if an individual is put in contempt for any other thing that he does that he'll be liable for nidui, even if the smallest of Israel put him in contempt of court, even the president and all of Israel are obligated to treat this person as if he's in contempt until he returns and repents for what he did, that he was liable for nidui and that he was put in nidui, and they release him from nidui. And again, we're going to get into the details in the next chapter. And this is basically a list of all the different things that an individual would be liable to be held in contempt of court, both men and women. For 24 things do we hold someone in contempt. Ben ish ben isha, both if he's a man or a woman. And these are the following. And these are serious things that the sages took extremely seriously, but didn't have the ability to punish them either by death or by any other punishment that the court would have at their disposal. First, someone who disgraces the sage. Again, this is different from what we mentioned earlier, that he was a student of the sage. Even after his death. Second, anyone who disgraces a messenger of the court who would invite the litigants to come to court. You invite the litigants and both the witnesses as well. Third, anyone who calls his fellow a slave. there are two possible reasons, I think, for this. That the first and probably the main reason is that this individual is claiming that his friend has a flaw in his lineage, and it would affect both him and his children in a very practical way. And also another reason is that we were all slaves in Egypt. So anyone calling his fellow a slave um, is saying something illegitimate, as he also was a slave at one point in time. ד' המזלזל בדבר אחד מדברי סופרים, ואין צריך לומר בדברי תורה. Anyone who scoffs at or takes lightly anything legislated by the sages, and obviously if he takes anything from scripture lightly, obviously it's in regards to a law or even an establishment or legislation that the court made. Fifth, anyone who the court sent for him and set a time to have his judgment, and he did not come, or even a witness. In regards to the previous one about someone who takes lightly the words of the establishments of the sages, in Masechet Eduyot Daf Yod Aleph, an individual by the name of El-Azar ben Hassach doubted Netilat Yadayim, and he was put in Nidui for this, as Netilat Yadayim is something that the sages established. Sixth, anyone who did not accept the judgment of the court, he is put in contempt until he gives whatever he was liable. 7. Anyone who has on his property anything that's a hazard to the public, for example, a wild or malicious dog or a rickety ladder, he's put in contempt until he removes the hazard. 8. Anyone who sells his property to a non-Jew, he's put in contempt until he, and basically we let the goy neighbor do whatever he wants to the Jew. 9. Anyone who testifies against another Jew in the courts of the goyim, and he actually took out money as a result from another Jew, and it was done not by the Jewish court system. He's held in contempt until this witness pays whatever he made the Jew be liable for in the non-Jewish courts. Yod, tabach kohen she'eno mafrish matanot v'notnan lekohen acher v'nadin oto ad she'iten. Any kohen butcher that doesn't take or separate the gifts from the kimuna or give it to another priest, he is held in contempt until he gives. 11. Anyone who desecrates the days that the people in exile keep, even though it's only a minhag, or a custom that was given legitimacy by the Jewish court. This was said actually in Masechet Pesachim, Daf Nun Bet, with Rav and Shemuel, who said this, and it's ironic because they actually opened up and began the two academies in Babylon after the Mishnah was written. They were both students of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and it's interesting to note that they were the ones who established this as they were living outside of Israel and began the academies in Babylonia. 12. Anyone who does work on the eve of Pesach after midday, because at the time there would be people that would be bringing the Korban Hagigah, and the slaughtering of the Korban Pesach was exactly at this time. It's as if he's not taking part in the Korban Pesach, and the Korban Pesach was for, as a remembrance for us to remember the exile and liberation of Egypt, which was one of the most important elements of our national memory. 13. Anyone who mentions the name of heaven as an exaggeration, or just says it for no good reason. 14. Anyone who brings the masses to desecrate God's name. 15. Anyone who brings and causes the masses to eat the designated foods that were eaten in the Beit HaMikdash, he brings them to eat it outside of where they're allowed. 16. Anyone who calculates the years and months outside of Israel. Halachot of Kiddush HaChodesh are only done by the courts in Israel. As the Pasuk says, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah. As from Zion will the Torah go out from. 17. Hamachshil et ha'iver. Anyone who puts a stumbling block before the blind. And obviously this, as Harambam will explain to us later, this is not necessarily limited to someone who puts a stumbling block before a blind person. Rather, it's anyone who causes his friend or fellow to do a transgression. 18. Anyone who delays the masses from doing a mitzvah. 19. Any butcher that slaughtered something and it wasn't slaughtered in the proper way, it is prohibited to eat this individual, and any butcher who gives and feeds this to the people is liable for any doing. 20. Any butcher who does not check his knife before a sage, before he's slaughtered. 21. Anyone who consciously thinks about different inappropriate things in order to get an erection. 22. Anyone who divorced a woman and purposely sets things up in a way of a partnership and does business with her in order for them to be dependent on one another. When they come to Beddin, eventually, they are put in contempt. Here, this is interesting because an individual that divorces his wife, his former wife, should try and leave her alone. And the women also should try and avoid her former husband. But if the court sees that these individuals are doing business and we see them together, we suspect something is fishy. And there is some weird relationship going on, and we want to take all measures to avoid anything inappropriate. 23. Any sage who has a bad reputation. 24. Anyone who puts someone in contempt, anyone who is not obligated or liable to be put in contempt. As Hashem, tomorrow we'll study Perek Shevi'i, the last chapter of Hilkhot Talmud Torah.